This Schecter model's on sale, but is it worth buying? Welcome back, troglodytes, to your daily dose of guitar information, the Trogly's Guitar Show. Tonight's review and demo is sponsored by Guitar Center. They wanted me to let you know that if you're in the market for a Schecter, they're having a huge sale on many of cool models right now as part of their Guitarathon sales. So if you're interested in checking out that sale or buying anything that Guitar Center has, please use those affiliate links in the description and pinned comment to let Guitar Center know that I sent you and that we should continue this partnership for more independent guitar reviews. I want to be clear, as this is a new partnership, they're not telling me what to say, and many times I get to choose which ones I want to do. So even if you're not in the market, feel free to leave a comment on what else that you might like to see from Guitar Center, because I'm really looking to expand the content of the channel, and this is one way that I can do that. But even though I haven't documented many Schecters, I just thought this thing was pretty darn attractive. Really great purple burst finish. We've got active EMG pickups in it. String through, that's a big thing for me when we're talking like a super shredder Strat style guitar. I don't like to deal with trem systems or anything like that, so that's always a plus to me. And I just loved this heel cutaway. But this is known as the Schecter C1 Platinum Edition. Normally these are $800, but right now they are on sale at 25% off. And if Satin Purple Burst isn't to your taste, they also have 3 different colors, including Satin Transparent Midnight Blue, which is pretty nice, a translucent black, as well as a transparent white satin. I almost went for that one because it matches the whole platinum vibe so well, but the backside of that one was black, and all the other colors get the cool matching bursts, so I had to go for the purple in that case. As far as my first impressions taking this one out of the box, a little bit sad we didn't at least get a gig bag with it. However, if you don't have a lot of money, you could always use this box that they ship it in as a temporary case because it's got all the padding built into it. Not ideal, but you know, if you need to save up a little bit more, it'll do in a pinch. But besides the finish, the most standout feature has to be the binding itself. It has a similar shine to mother of pearl. It's the whole platinum thing. Apparently that's carbon fiber binding, but has a really cool shine to it in person. I'm not really sure if that's coming across on the camera or not. And I've got to say, look at those frets straight out of the box. I'm not sure if they cherry picked me a nice example and polished these beforehand. I can't really comment on that, but this looks fantastic for that price. So to sum up why I chose this one, it's a little bit different than my usual guitar, but it looks great. And it seems to be at a very player-friendly budget. It has some cool features like a matching headstock and all the platinum stuff going on. I will say the satin finish isn't quite exactly what I was expecting. It has a little bit more tackiness to it than some satins I've felt, but that might be a good or a bad thing depending on your own preferences. But to learn more about this one, let's go ahead and throw it onto the workbench to take an individual look at its parts and specs. Inside our Schecter C1, I decided to do a few tests with the finish, but we'll do that on the backside. Let's focus with our electronics. So far, everything is on par with our spec sheet. The neck pickup is a Quick Connect EMG 85. You can see your branding back there. And the bridge is your typical complementary 81. Metallica has been using this set for a long time. I remember when I was first getting into guitar, I always wanted a guitar equipped with these pickups, and usually they're on a Quick Connect system, so it's easy to retrofit into anything, but this guitar just has it stock. Now that said, this is an active pickup set, so you're going to have to utilize a 9-volt battery, and this is going to be very punchy and driving. However, if you're like me and you're a bit more of a traditionalist, you can still get jazz tones out of these. Just remember, roll your volume down and watch your pick attack. These can be quite versatile if you know what you're doing. As far as the neck pickup cavity, you can see we've got a really long neck tenon in there. And unfortunately, everything else is covered over in black shielding paint, so I can't really comment on how thick the maple top might be, because the spec sheet calls it a mahogany body with a maple top. I'm pretty sure right down here we can see the join line of the maple top, and on the side that ends like right where the binding layer is, so that makes complete sense. However, at this price, I'm pretty sure we're going to have a veneer top, which means you can either take a photo of beautiful wood like this, or you can take a real piece of wood and slice it into thin paper sheets and lay it over top of a regular maple top. That way they all look pretty uniform. Now, does this one have a photo veneer or is it a real wooden top? It doesn't move a lot in person, but right here on the workbench, you can see it is a real wooden veneer. And as I said earlier, we'll talk a little bit more about what you can do to bring that out on the backside of the guitar. But to complement your pickups, you have a master volume and a master tone, and your regular 3-way toggle switch. I've reviewed a few Schecter in my day, and I do know they tend to use these really stiff ones, so you're not gonna accidentally knock that one out of place. So that's good to know. As far as the readings within the circuit, they don't really make sense because they're active pickups. and we're also on the 200k ohm setting, but looks like they work. I do want to make note, whatever output jack they're using, it's kind of hard to get your lead in there, but once it's in there, it nearly locks into place, but it is not a locking jack. It utilizes a football shaped plate. And then as far as the bridge, they call this Satin Platinum. Looks like they're being made by Sung Il over in Korea, but it's a version of a two-pneumatic bridge that has posts installed within the body. And then you can see your string through ferrules down here acting as your tailpiece. But if you're not familiar with what a carved top is, rather than just being flat and blocky, they actually shape the wood into a belly shape. So you can see it slopes down in this area to kind of help accentuate the top. But then up here, where you're going to be soloing, they sculpt away the wood a little bit more, also to help shape the whole Stratocaster. So here's a really good lighting situation where you can see the curves of the instrument, so to speak. But moving on from our mahogany body and maple top, we have our 3-piece maple neck, which we'll talk about a bit more on the back, and a rosewood fretboard. I've got to say, I was very impressed with the look of this fretboard straight out of the box. There's other brands at higher price points that don't have real rosewood, and this one's looking really good. But they're saying these inlays are also a platinum material. I mean, to me, it just looks like really fancy perloid. But you've got these offset dots in most locations. Then they call this a Gothic cross. But I found this interesting. Right beside our platinum binding, you actually do have a black layer as well. You have to be in the right lighting to notice it. I think that helps pull off some of the look of this. Now, to be really critical, you can see some of these side markers have gotten covered over in something during the process. Like that should be completely black. And there's some unevenness as to where the dots are installed. But to be fair, I think they do that intentionally. That way it's not hiding closer to the binding. And if you look closely on the edge, you can actually see the continuation of our black plastic material inside of our platinum binding. But there's some areas where the binding just kind of looks uneven, but I think that's just part of the material that they're using. And earlier I was complimenting the beautiful fret job. I mean, that's super shiny straight out of the box. I did notice as I was handling this guitar though, if you look at the neck like this, you can see that there's some rust spots on the harder areas to reach on the fret. Now, are those going to cause you any issues? No, but it's just something I noticed. And you are able to steel wool those off if they bother you. But unless you're siding the neck, you are never going to notice that. And I would happily put up with that if that means we get frets looking this good right out of the factory. But it looks like these utilize a 25.5-inch scale length and a fretboard radius as shown. The tusk nut measures a very appropriate reading for a Schecter, and 2.05 at the 12th. 0.81 first fret neck depth. Wow, 0.86 at the 12th. That stays slim. The spec sheet calls it a slim C, and I would agree. There's visual confirmation on the contour gauge at the first fret and the 12th fret. Maintains that C. Now we can move on to the face of the headstock. I just realized this guitar matches my tablecloth that I use over my workbench, but you can see the multi-layers of binding, your platinum tuners, and then with your truss rod cover off, you can see your access to the rod itself. But the truss rod cover itself is also that platinum material, so that's pretty cool. So if you see how this moves, the inlays do a very similar thing. But now moving on to the back is where the fun begins. So as I was telling you earlier, this is a satin finish in nature. That means it's not completely buffed into a full gloss. So in theory, usually guitars like these are great for players because your hand can glide across them a little easier. But I was telling you earlier how it has a certain grabbiness to it, almost like it's dirty, but I did clean this a little bit and I wasn't getting any dirt off of it, so I think it's just the style of finish. But I like to do durability tests. So right here in the cutaway, I utilized a scratch remover as well as a heavy-duty polish, simply to show you the difference between a satin finish and more of a gloss. So with a little bit of elbow grease, if you would prefer this to be a full gloss instrument, you can do it. Now I did notice once I did that, you've got a little bit of orange peel into the finish, and maybe that's part of the tackiness that I was feeling, but you don't notice that with the stock finish. It's also good to know about this because over time, as your arm rubs against your instrument or the backside of your hand on the neck, it will naturally start to buff up. I was telling you earlier about the platinum binding and having a hard time showing you it. Over in this corner, I decided to polish that up as well. And let's just say, it gives that binding such a smoother feel to it. Listen to my finger over top of the binding here. And now over here. Now, if you're in the mindset that you would like to prevent that as much as possible, I did a different test on the neck. I just used a regular pump polish that you can get at pretty much any store. And I still went to town cleaning this, and I did not see any significant buffing to the finish. So that tells me that this is going to be durable, and it's not going to start showing super quickly, but eventually over time you'll get there. Or you can choose to speed up the processes if you wish. So that said, remember how I was telling you a way to bring out this top? The satin finish dulls how much light can get to the wood. So if you were to take all your parts off of this again, take it to a buffing wheel or just use some hand power, you could make the top a little bit more active. That's up to you. But now let's check out our wiring. Looks like we've got Korean branded pots, the tiny style, and despite being quick connect EMGs, it's a fully wired harness. So if you wanted to go passive pickups, it shouldn't be too hard to upgrade. Well, now that I've said that, these are active pots, so you'd have to swap those out. These are usually smaller in diameter, so you might have to get a reamer. It actually would be a bit of a process. But over here, you have your compartment for your battery. And I will say, that is really tough to get out. You're going to have to be trying. But another reason I wanted to review this guitar is looking at the stock photos on Guitar Center's website, I thought, oh my goodness, $600 neck through guitar? No, it's just a 3-piece body. It is a set neck construction, and they hide the join line right there with the black paint. So don't make the same mistake I did. It is a set neck. Now, does that make it any worse? No. I'm just a fan of neck through guitars because I think they're kind of cool. But here you can see just how much wood they really shave away. I mean, can you get all the way up here? Yeah, easily. But then we have platinum strap buttons, one on the top horn and one at the base. But another spec I really like about this is the 3-piece maple neck. I've always enjoyed those. Now this particular one's a little bit tricky to see, but you can see one seam line right there. Then they have another one right here. I think that's just a great combination of woods. And we've got some interesting wood grain on that centerpiece right there. Now we can look at the top of the headstock. We can see our platinum Grover tuners, looking good as always. And then here's something that you might consider a Schecter for, crafted in Indonesia. So if you don't want to buy Chinese-made goods, you might consider something like this. Still on the more affordable range of things, but from a slightly different country. But I did notice these small impressions on the back of the headstock. Not sure what caused that, but they were there from unboxing. Overall score over here on the Workbench, I'd say that's a solid 9.5. Just a few minor nitpicky cosmetic things. And I really would say this guitar was a little bit chunkier than I was expecting. Like, we got a whole bunch of contours going on, but if you look at it from its thickest point down there and then to your thickest right there, it's measuring just shy of 2 inches at 1.93. And how much does it weigh? Just a little over 7 pounds, 0.6 ounces. Let's go ahead, plug it in, and hear how it sounds with the stock EMGs. We'll start with our volume on full 10. So if you're thinking that's too harsh, remember what I said earlier, roll it down to 5, just boost the settings of your amp a bit, and EMGs can clean up pretty nicely. Play with your tones if that's a little bit too bright. I'd say 4 or 5 is about the right spot if you want more passive tones. And don't forget, you can also clean up your dirties going from this down to something like this. So there we are, the Schecter C1 Platinum in the Satin Purple Burst. Hope you guys enjoyed learning about this one. It's not what we normally feature on the show, but I enjoyed having a little bit of something different here. Something to keep in mind though, these are 24 extra jumbo frets. I mean, these things are quite tall. They will take a little bit to get used to, because if you got a really heavy hand, you can pull things out of tune. I didn't notice that too much, but I did find with my limited soloing technique, sometimes I would accidentally bend the string off the fretboard because the frets were so tall. But having a full 2-octave scale can definitely come in handy. And even if you're not a big fan of active EMG pickups, hopefully this demo shows you that you can tame them and get different tonalities, even if you're not a big metal rock guy. Or feel free to gut it and put your own passive electronics into it if that's what you're into. But ultimately, for $600, would I recommend this? Yeah. I mean, it's got a whole lot going on for it. Upper fret access like crazy, all the frets you could want. Another option is you could file down those frets if you don't need them quite that tall, but this thing will give you many years of enjoyment out of it. And it looks pretty darn good too doing it. Alright, Troglodytes, I hope you enjoyed. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe, and let me know what guitar from Guitar Center you would like me to review in depth next. Take care.